Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Chasing the Puck live podcast. Thank you very much for taking the time on a Monday evening to listen to the show and listen to everything that's been going on in the world of UK hockey. Thank you once again for everyone who has sent their photos, videos, and everything over the last week or so. Big thank you for everyone who has listened to the show on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, and TikTok, everything else. It's been a hell of a week, and really appreciate your time and all the questions that you've sent in. There's a lot to go through tonight, so big appreciation for that. And let's get started. So obviously, chat is open. Come and say hello. Any questions or any thoughts, we'd love to hear them. Bring them on, and we'll talk about them as we can go. So let's get cracking on another episode. Obviously, I hope you're all comfortable wherever you're watching it, at home, out and about, in the bath, wherever you might be. Who knows where you are right now watching me chat about hockey on a Monday night. So a lot of questions really people wanted me to open up the show about was the game on Sunday, which was, of course, the game between the Belfast Giants and the Sheffield Steelers. I mean, if you weren't at the game live and you only saw the bits and pieces that were on social media, what a game. That was obviously the big thing really is, I've said this, a lot of times about testament of the league and the games that people want to see. And, that was that game that had a little bit of everything. You think about it, it was kind of do or die for the Steelers, looking at the points differential between the Steelers and the Giants. People going in, it was very nice to speak to Steelers fans before the game, Giants fans as well, just to get their thoughts and opinions of how the game was going to go before it happened. Of course, if people did see the weekend, it was the first time that I brought predictions into the realm of Chasing the Puck's social media channel. So, I'm batting at a pretty decent average, to be fair. Obviously, if you are a Manchester Storm fan, I would like to send my apologies to any of their fan base with my prediction on Saturday against the Cardiff Devils. That one, I was a little bit off. My apologies. Sunday, I got accused of being on the wacky backy, drinking the ale with my predictions. I think it was mainly based upon the Flyers versus Cardiff prediction, but a few people thought it was mad to think that Steelers were going to come out with 2 points against the Belfast Giants. Spoiler, if you didn't know the results, I got that one right. But no, let's look at the game. Really, sell out. Thing that we have to really say is I have to credit the Giants fans that made the trip up. They might have spent 2 nights. They might have gone to Nottingham the day before. They might have just made the flight over just to see Giants versus Steelers. But for 60 minutes, they made the noise. I got a message where someone said that they thought there was hundreds of Giants fans at the game because how loud they were on the stream. And, testament to the, 12 fans that were there that made noise all through the night. Got a little bit quieter as the evening wore on, but we'll come to that. But, start of the game, 2 great teams, really. This is a testament of the way that the league is, that I've not seen much of the Giants this year, but I have to say I was mightily impressed with how well the Giants played, offensively, defensively, netminder, Jackson. What a netminder, coming in, playing a really solid game. And, they've got players, that are great. You look at Conway. I mean, he might have his people that might think he is something off the ice, but on the ice, he performs really, really well. And, credit for the Steelers. They didn't really bring in too much of him before the game. It was all about 2 teams, both going for 2 points. And you look at the game, the way it started, Belfast played really, really solidly. Great penalty kill by the Steelers, and to just go back on 5 to concede when they did, you know, level of disappointment really. One goal game, but you've got to credit the way that the Giants were playing and the pressure that they put on the Steelers, that they were fully deserving of a 1-0 lead going into it. Could have been more. That's the thing. Greenfield saved the team a few times. They had a couple of shots. I always say whatever I've got on my videos kind of dictates how the game is going. And, for the first time in a very long time, I've had in the first period probably 12 or 13 videos where I was thinking Giants were going to score. And that's how offensively they were really sound and solid in that first period. And, you go into the second period really and you look at it and you think, whoever scores first has kind of got the echoes of probably taking the game and taking the ascendancy of the way that it was going to go. And Giants got that second goal, and you see the Giants fans lapping it up, living it up, having the best life, making that trip. I don't know how much it costs to stay and travel with flights. That's a conversation that we're going to cover about traveling and stuff as the program goes on. But they were probably thinking 2-0, got this one wrapped up, knocked Sheffield out the title race. And the testament of how good that game was that you were thinking, is this game over? How is the team going to react? How's the team going to come back into the game? And come back they did. Of course, there's been posts in the past that saying Valorant gets lost in the big games. Come up big, got the goal. And of course, then you've got, Robert Dowd. There's a couple of questions about Robert Dowd, and I was very lucky to capture both goals, which is a rarity in my case. Got a really damn good video, and obviously now his tally now that he's got, what an achievement. And then of course, you take the two empty netters away, really. It's what it is. Obviously the biggest question that people asked is the timeout by the Giants. Fully understand it, fully get it. You could see that the momentum swing was changing and just needed to settle the team down, just get everything under control. And, sometimes these things work, is that you think, slow the game down, don't take the opportunities away and just calm themselves. And, sometimes these things work, but the occasion got its over the situation. But I think one thing that I'd probably say about that game is for both sides, for Giants and the Steelers fans, you've got to credit both of them for creating such a noise, such an atmosphere that was probably, the CHL games were a testament of what happens when everyone's fully on board, backwards and forwards. This isn't football, this is a library or chants backwards and forwards. This is two sets of fan bases that were fully engaged and fully set to be a cracking atmosphere. I don't know if you could hear it on the stream. If you were there live, absolutely fine. And if you did, I haven't watched the stream, so I can't really attest to it. But, there was goosebumps from both sides, the backwards and forwards between the two sets of fan bases, the drums, the standing up, and the stewards telling people to sit down in the away stand for creating noise and atmosphere. That's, this is what you want to see. You want two teams going hell to leather, battling for 2 points. This wasn't a case of, this was a sparring, this was a boxing match. And for Steelers, they've come into it now. They've obviously took the game, the weekend in general. Guildford's not a great place. Obviously, the last time that they did lose, it's been the first loss in years for a Steelers team to go to Guildford. And, they had to give a performance, and they did. Saturday's game was a testament. They came into it, and then they came into Sunday where pretty much they lose, and if it's over, it's a lot to ride back and come back with the points, because that's the thing is with Giants for the last, they are chasers. This is time that they are actually leaders in the league, and people are coming at them, and Devils getting back into the swing of things as well. As soon as their injuries subside, bring a new signing in today. They're a really great team. And, you look at Panthers as well. I've said it's a tighter race with the four. I think a lot of people are going to look at it and go, well, the way that the points are now and the fixtures that are now left, there's a lot of say in that tighter race. I mean, you've got to look at the double header for Devils and Giants next weekend. That's going to be you know a good set of games, really. Two teams battling out. Devils with their Conti Cup win, their automatic high of beating Steelers in the Challenge Cup. They can easily take a 4-point weekend in Belfast. Will my predictions say that that's going to happen? Who knows? It depends how I feel on the day. But I've got to give a lot of credit to both set of fan bases on Sunday, because that was probably one of the best games that I've covered in a long time. It had moments, it had action, had excitement. Didn't have any fights. There wasn't anything, silly shenanigans or anything like that. But I could really, if every game was like that, I would absolutely love to see it. And great. I'll be honest. For me, did I see the game ending the way it was going to? No, because I was kind of prepared for a different avenue of what I was going to be posting on social media as the game ended. I had to make a quick change with the way that the game went, and change from my normal location to get to somewhere very quickly to make sure I covered the last bit of the game, because it turned on its head. It was something that wasn't expected, but to see, this is the luxury that I have, is that I can see the little intricacies, the little moments of, the tide turn on its head. And where my angle is now for when I get my videos is, you can see the fans from the home side, you see the fans from the away side, and you could just see the flip of a coin of just how it changed. And, credit to the Giants fans again. They're doing, Dance Along to Sweet Caroline, which always tell people that they should do, because who doesn't love a little bit of Sweet Caroline? And, credit to them. They saw me and, started chanting for me, which obviously for my ego with my new varsity jacket was very, very nice to hear. If you've not seen the varsity jacket, it's very, very nice. So obviously if you see that on social media, have a look. People have asked him where you can buy it from, T-shirts and stuff like that. People have asked if we're having merchandise and stuff like that, which I think is crazy to me. I find it crazy that you guys are sitting here on a Monday night listening to me, or if you're listening to the on-demand repeat or any of the podcasts, I thank you immensely to taking the time out to listen to myself and, listen to Ollie on Beyond the Boards. He's put a couple episodes in now with these podcasts. We've shared the links on our social media channels. If you're not following him, follow, give it a listen. It's obviously nice to have someone else's voice on the side of hockey and things, so you don't always have to listen to me. We're hoping that we can do a crossover, the MCU of Chasing the Puck, where we can get two voices in the same building, but these are the things will come. But that's the thing, is there's so many podcasts and so many different opinions within the world of hockey nowadays. It's great that you take the time to, send me questions. We've been doing questions for the last couple of weeks, doing a mailbag, because, the format that I did previously was me just ranting on about games and statistics and variable things and different like that. I think we've kind of hit the niche at episode 19, which is good. Obviously, when we hit episode 22, it just turns all Taylor Swift. I mean, it has to. It's 22. So let's have a look at the questions that are in there. Who is the best whistle, and why is it Brandon? I mean, that's the thing, people were posting saying no, Brandon scored past Jackson. Well, Jackson wasn't in his net and he was back at the bench. So obviously that's a different conversation. Everyone has their love for either Brandon or Jackson. If I'm honest, I think, Jackson's a hell of a netminder, of course. Back in the days, I did interview him when he was at Panthers. Really sound guy, really good person to talk to, and he's a hell of a netminder. I do take what happened at the Elite Series a little bit harshly, how he was treated in that situation with bounds and whistle. He wanted to play and the opportunity, but he's found a home at Belfast. And, there was a start, obviously, with Besco being there and not having the opportunity to play. But now, when he plays and he's got that opportunity to play, he's not been out of place, and he's a hell of a netminder. And Brandon, leaps and bounds, really good player from what people used to say about him. And his times on a two-way, he's came into that Steelers side. He's moved up the lines. He's scored some important goals, and he's a hell of a player. And if you've got someone that you can keep within the door, Absolutely perfect. Other question is definitely the best looking player in the league. Captain Perfect Hair, as I seem to call him, and he remembers my name. So, all in all, he's a great guy. If we're honest, and that probably leads me to the question. So, first question that someone brought into me was, um, is Robert Dowd the best British player to ever grace the ice in the Elite League? Wow, I mean, and thank you for the question. They didn't put down who it was that did it, but if we're going to start on these questions, let's start them with a good one. So you got to look. Uh, there's it's an achievement. 356 goals. Looking at the history of, would you think anyone would have got that number? Would they've got that stats? And I don't know if you heard the story from the post game from Aaron Fox that Simsy text Aaron Fox to basically say that he's two away from the goals to equal the record, and then obviously three to beat it, and not to tell him because they didn't want obviously what happened last time with him, taking a couple of games to hit that target, and that's a tough thing, these targets and set in the way. I mean, we've had it with Joey Martin this season as well, Dowdy as well. That there's been some milestones. The statos and the statistics have kind of, a lot of things have been beaten recently, and a lot of things have changed. But you want me to answer the question, and I have to say yes. I think as a captain, what he had to deal with last season on and off the ice, and being a captain for GB and a captain for Steelers over a Grand Slam period. And his performance haven't dropped. He does everything that is asked of him. Defensively, offensively. Drop the gloves. I know people have a contest and with his fight record of that you don't mess with Dowdy, and he always wins the fight. I mean, he's a fighting captain, and this is the thing, when you look at the drop down or anything like that, how fit he keeps himself and the position that he is. He's still in the team. He's still contributing to goals and assists. And, I still think he's got a couple of years in the tank, if I'm honest. But, he's not settled in a position where he is a part player, a bit player. He is the forefront of a lot of action that happens within that Steelers group, where cometh the hour, cometh the man. He's there 9 times out of 10 and galvanizes the team. From his Eddie, you can take a penalty shot as a footballer as well. So, my question is, if it's not Robert Dowd, who is the best Brit to grace the Elite League or any variations of UK hockey? Throw us on our social media channels, throw it in the chat here, fling some names in of the best Brits that you've seen and who you think it might be. So looking at it, of course, if we're talking about Brits as well, there was some signing news, transfer deadline day. This is not me being Jim White with a yellow tie. There's been some action that some moved. I think obviously Reece Kelly going over from Clan to Sheffield. From a Devils point of view, I really enjoyed seeing him as a Devil. Really enjoyed seeing him as a Clan player when he played. And he's a young defenseman. He's got a lot of talent in the books, and you got to be, the last time Steelers got someone from Clan mid-season, you got to be honest, it worked out pretty well for them, if we're honest. Obviously, if you didn't see that reference, it's Zach Vanel. But that's the thing, Brits are a commodity. There's something within the system that, to get someone of that talent this part of the season, for whatever reasons, not playing or making to want the change, it's a very good shot window. There's a very good high intensity, a couple of games coming in, people questioning if it was a legit signing at the beginning because there wasn't any announcements or anything like that, and asking Pete Spencer to fact check was not on my bingo card, if I'm honest, which was a lot of fun. But, from a signing point of view, to bring someone in with what they are planning to do. Are they going to drop, put Tansy as a forward because that's kind of been working and that's kind of brought a different level of play for the Steelers. But it's a tremendous opportunity with the group. Same with Sam Tremblay. A lot of people were, when we did the interview with him, was asking the question, when would they sign him? Obviously the circumstances that led to that. Such a shame to come in for Maxim, player of the month for January, and the reason he had to leave. And then, one in, one out. Obviously, De Filippo back for the Steelers. If I butcher that pronunciation, I do apologise. And Hoosman being released. He came in, did a job with Greenfield being injured. Greenfield is kind of the MVP, really. As a netminder, he got man of the match at the weekend on Sunday, and he saves that team a lot of the time. He stands on his head. He is a tremendous ability. So someone to come in to switch, it was always going to be a tough challenge. And to be fair, what a baptism of fire, really, to come in and play against a Devils team and trying to recover from that. The fan base for Steelers were obviously fully behind it. People made their observations and jokes that they did with him conceding as quickly as he did. Obviously, I saw a highlight package of his highlights at Sheffield that was posted today. That was just pretty much the conceded goals against Cardiff. So, it's a shame, really. He had a tremendous opportunity to come in and do something, but it hasn't quite worked out. But, if there's any teams that are looking for a netminder, he's in the country. Maybe snap him up and obviously have a bit of a rotation, depending on where that looks for people. But yeah, from a signings point of view, Cade coming back to Clan, earlier in the week, Harrison Kane's coming into Storm. It wasn't going to be proactively a big transfer window. This isn't the days of, chopping and changing as much with the import levels that need to be done and what people need to bring in. There's not a lot of chopping and changing that you can do with relation to people that you bring in and what consistency and what levels. Obviously we kind of put on that joke's on you was coming to Devils at the weekend. Some people picked on it, some people didn't. Got to have a bit of fun with these things, but what can you do? So other question that kind of got through into us today was with the Clan chat with the new CEO, Russell Smith, and what your thoughts. I mean, that's the thing, Clan, you got to look at the last couple of years with Clan, really. The changes in ownership, having the Premier Sport access and the sponsorship that they have with them, which obviously opens a lot of doors with having them being able to be shown on the programming, and the highlight packages that they can do and the full games that can be repeated. I think it was a very big fresh air. I actually listened to the interview, and sometimes it's good to bring new people in, new ideas, outside looking in. And that's the biggest thing. We want this sport to grow. We want more people in the doors, more people watching on the streams, buying the merchandise, loving and embracing hockey like we do. So it's a good sign that they're bringing someone in. There's obviously performances on the ice. There's a lot of stuff off the ice. You kind of see it on social media. I've only been to Clan for the weekend and speaking to their fans and stuff like that. They have a hardcore fan base. You can say things and obviously they take it within their stride. Some things, don't mention pegs and you'll be fine. But, I think it's a good sign for them to bring someone in, someone fresh eyes, new ideas, and bring it through the table, really. If they can bring some success, I think the biggest thing is with the last couple of years where they've not made playoffs or they've not even got through to the quarterfinals. I think, having Corey, a player that is, losing Kelly, but gaining a Cade Nielsen for the best part of the next set of games gives them a really good opportunity and a chance now to cement it. Because, if we look at it really, let's be honest, there's only one spot really to miss out on the playoffs now. I hate to say it, but, Fife aren't going to miraculously go on a big run. If they do, obviously screenshot this, record this, and show it to me at another point. But, it is a position now where one team is going to join Fife in those bottom two places. And Clan are trying to do everything to do it, because if they make a success of it, they get a good draw and they do get to Nottingham for the playoffs. It'd be great for the fans because they obviously turn up in big numbers, with their themes that they do. and different jerseys and different T-shirts that they bring out to celebrate the playoffs. And Clangus is lovely, more Clangus, home and away, bring Clangus. It'll make everyone happy. But you know, you look at the teams, who's doing it right. You kind of look at Belfast. They've started. They've done things right. Their fan base. The sellouts that they're getting, the performances they're doing, and bringing everything to the table on and off the ice. Yes, people weren't happy about the policy with the cups, and obviously the different types of jerseys they brought in, but their engagement with the fan base and the levels they've got, that week in, week out, they're just there or thereabouts selling out. And Belfast is a tourist town as well. Get people that are fully embraced into the culture, get them in, enjoying the games, absolutely perfect. Sheffield, again, a lot of things that they're doing right. Another high attendance, another high 50-50. A lot of engagement, a lot of, social media, with the guys in the social media team. They're doing a lot of things right, having a bit of fun with it and everything. Same with Panthers. They're getting the sellouts, they're getting, a bit more fun, a little bit of sass, everything that you need. Same with Devils, they're sellout. Oh, sorry, hell out. I should get that right, with the way that they're performing things. And they've had a lot of success. There is a question where it says, are the wheels falling off for the Devils? And I still think, for the performance they gave on Wednesday, watching that game live and the way that the Devils played against Steelers, they could have literally wilted away, but they just complete performance, got themselves back into the game, led the game, and just didn't look like they were in any trouble. And, they've won the tray, the second team to win the Conti Cup after the Panthers. Sorry, I'm legally obliged to say that every time I mention the Conti Cup. It's absolutely fine. But, is it a disappointing season? They're in a final. Don't know who they're going to play yet. Is it going to be Belfast or Panthers? I'm going to give my thoughts on that shortly, because obviously I did so well with the last time I gave my predictions and thoughts about the semi-final second leg, of course. So we'll see what I think of that one. But, they have a really good team. They're really impressed. But I think obviously one big shout out really has to be Guildford. They posted just before we went on the show that they're 60 tickets away from another sellout. And this is Guildford. The credit that they're doing to get as many sellouts that they have recently. We've all been to Guildford Spectrum. First time I went, I didn't realise it was a leisure centre. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I didn't know. And seeing, I spoke to someone who went on Saturday and told me, obviously they saw, there was roller derby there. There was, there was tacos, always love a taco. People swimming in the bathing suits, walking around, and the smell of chlorine, of course. But, credit to them. This is what we want. This is what we need is, sellouts, big attendances. We're asking for it and we shall receiving it. Of course, I don't do attendance posts on the bingo card anymore, but that because it gets circled off every week because we want it a little bit more challenging. But, attendance-wise, it's great. Storm's doing great. Fife are doing great. Everyone is not in a position where they're struggling for numbers through the door. And that still goes to the National League as well. Fill the tank, Solway, Hull's making great attendances. Leeds, absolutely amazing. Of course, one thing that I should have said earlier in the show, really, is congratulations to the Leeds Knights for winning the Cup at the weekend. But, commiserations to Romford, checking the scores. Yeah, didn't realise it was Cup final over 2 days. So I thought Romford won it when I was looking Saturday night, and then realised they got to play again the next day. I mean, that must be a really weird one. Of course, taking the lead into one game, you're thinking you've done enough, and then it might, this is Leeds Knights, performance-wise, absolutely brilliant to get a trophy. Between the teams that are in there, Swindon are playing well, MK are playing well, Leeds, year in, year out, are playing absolutely brilliantly. And obviously, I know there is a question that's going to come up about who could make the step up. I'm going to answer that one. But obviously, I don't know the ins and outs of the National League. I don't know if it's better to be the team that's in there with the signings that they can bring in. But I would love to see a Leeds Knights team in the Elite League. You know, the young Brits that they've got, the imports that they brought in. You know, Sam Gospel there, hell of a player, and I'd love to see them do it. But you know, congratulations on them winning the trophy. Did really, really well. So one of the other questions was, you know, don't know who this is. They only started listening from episode 15. They want to know what the bingos are and where to view them. So if you've got Twitter, if you've got X, we normally do the bingo card on there. So the bingo card was originally envisioned very early on for when I started to do social media side of things, which was just a bit of fun, really. And, you know, if we're honest, in its early infancy, it was very much like people tagging people into saying silly things and not realizing, and teams saying someone's took a shit instead of a shot. But everyone's savvied up a little bit. Unfortunately, you know, we're kind of in a position where a lot of people aren't really saying the things they used to say and being quite guarded and quite jaded. So we didn't do the bingo card this weekend because unfortunately Saturday I was unavailable. So the big thing with the bingo card is that you've kind of got to look about 20, 30 fixtures to see if anyone's had a penalty shot, gone to overtime or anything like that. So unfortunately we couldn't do it this weekend. So the plan is that we're going to do it on Twitter, going to do it on Facebook, where, you know, the onus is on you guys, really. You know, it's going to be more based on, you know, if there's a too many men penalty, if, you know, slew footing, player rejected, a fight or anything like that, where you can just put it in the comments and just let us know that it's happened, the game's going on, and stuff that's happening, because it's all about interaction, really. It's all just a little bit of fun. You know, when you go to the hockey, you look for the excitement, the fights, the drama, and the shenanigans and anything that happens. So it was kind of brought in for everyone to just have a bit of fun with. So it will be back next weekend. Obviously, it'll probably be a little bit of a mixture. Of course, you know, getting Devils fans with a pint of Guinness, someone taking a photo outside the Titanic Museum. But, you know, we look at the games and see what might happen if there's any dramas or anything. I mean, I think a lot of people want the Mitchell Hurd comments as well. Of course, the video, the new GIF that's flying around about him having a drink is what we're going to say. If you've not seen the video, I think he's asking for a drink. He might be asking for something else, but, you know, who knows? And obviously, people asking for updates, because that seems to be one thing that seems to be happening, which goes to the next question, was what do you think about Conway saying updates anyone to Steelers, and then Kevin Tansey saying updates anyone after the result on Sunday? I love it. You know, let's not beat around the bush. Is from a situation that we watch a sport that we love, we are fully invested in a sport, and, you know, people keep the receipts. That was obviously one thing that has reared its head over the last couple of weeks, is people have been keeping receipts about the quality of the league and saying that it's not easy, and then people coming back and saying, well, 6 months ago you said it was the best league ever, and loads of teams have recruited well, and, you know, bookmark it, we're going to win another treble and so much. You know, I wonder what people who don't have social media do when they go to hockey, because there's just these little nooks and crannies, these bits of information where, you know, it's kind of a secret club, if you know, you know, where, you know, you could go to a game, you know, people are booing Conway. Why are you booing Conway? Why are they booing this player and stuff like that? But they don't know the fact that, you know, given a bit of needle during the game. And this is the thing that you open it up. Unfortunately, if you say something, you know, deleting is cheating. One key thing that I always say is that you've got to own whatever you say, regardless. And, you know, I put my foot in it a lot of times with my wild, silly predictions. Could easily amend it, delete it, and never speak of it again. But, you know, this is what it's all about. It's a lot of fun. Hockey is meant to be fun. And, you know, the good and the bad of whatever happens, we've got to enjoy it. You know, these players come here, play as hard as they can, and play to the best of their ability. But if something funny happens or something silly happens, and then if the big and talking point isn't the result of a game, it's what someone's going to post or how someone's going to react. We've seen it. You know, Haas used to have a lot of fun every so often that would just appear randomly. You wouldn't hear from him for months on end, retired, and then just pops in and just has a poke at the Steelers. Um, Conway's kind of the same person, the same vein. You know, unfortunately, when you post something like that, if something good happens, it's a good follow on. But when something like that is, you've got to credit, some people were kind of, oh, Tansy shouldn't say that, don't do that. And it's just like, but this is the fun of it. Steelers did it as well with his updates on the league, because obviously you're asking for it kind of mentality. And it kind of breathes life into a game. Everyone's going to look at incidences during the game, before the game, and after the game. But it's nice. It's a nice palate cleanser. Just going in, logging in on social media, and just seeing that someone's given a big and online. But this is the thing with sport. Unfortunately, you have one moment where you do something really, really well, and it'll come back to you down the line. Something will always come back. That's the thing, is Belfast fans were already probably waiting for the next time that Steelers lose a game, and then they will quote tweet Kevin Tanzi's message with updates. Anyone, if they lost to Fife on Wednesday, I'm sure there'll be a load of Belfast fans that have got that bookmark ready to go to quote tweet and saying, here's your update. And it's a bit of a laugh, it's a bit of fun. You got to look at it that way. Obviously, the other question that kind of got asked really was the interaction between players and fans. I asked for an elaboration on this, really, because it was kind of an interesting question. Because obviously, from what I gathered, people were very much like, looking at it of saying, from a player's point of view, they come here, they do a job, 9 to 5. Is not the level that they're at. It's, they're playing a hockey game, they're playing intensive 2 or 3 games, training, living within the cities, and leading a normal life, really. And, there's been stories in the past about going to spas, going to supermarkets, and that there's fans waiting, DMing players, pretending that they're their besties, in a situation where it's just like trying to take ownership of a player. And, it's very strange that these players come and go. I've seen it, that people have their favourites. Of course, they absolutely have their favourites that they will have on the back of their jersey. They'll put in, obviously, everything. But, the chocolate stuff, you see it, people get thrown chocolate. No one's throwing chocolate at me, which is fine. I don't take that personally. But you see them after the game, they've got handfuls of chocolates. There's signs made for them. There's so many different levels of fan base. I think from what the conversation really is, that people do take it a step too far. And this is the scariest thing, is that, people can say about the officiating in this league, money, performances, not liking it, wanting to go to warmer locations or different step ups in levels. But when you think of certain players that might not come back again because how certain fans are reacting to them and take a vested interest in their life, and just, it's really weird behavior. And, my thoughts on it is that, these people are doing their profession, something that they love, and, they want the accolades that comes with that to be friendly. And of course, they will sign something for a fan or talk to a fan or anything like that. But there has to be levels. There has to be a degree of, these people aren't your friends. They will be kind enough to speak to you and support you, but there has to be a level, really, that has to be looked at, and just be wary that these players might not come back if you take it across the line and take it too far. And unfortunately, you kind of see it in the last couple of years, and some people haven't come back because of it. And it's really sad, because these are very talented players that probably would have stayed. And if that's a deciding factor of why these players might not come back, it's not good. The thing is that I've always said, you have a bad time at a restaurant, you tell hundreds of people. If you have a great time, most people are not inclined to say the good. They always tell things, the bad side of things. So if you're doing it, stop it, because obviously these people are people too, really. So looking at it as well, there's a lot of questions. A really random question that someone sent here was, what's the best Ghostbusters film, which is very nice. And why is it 2016? Obviously, it's a hockey one, and 2016 Ghostbusters doesn't exist. So thank you for whoever sent that question in. They must know me very, very well to ask that question. But what can you do? So looking at it there, logos. So someone asked me, who needs updated logos and changing completed, and be brave. Who's the best and worst logos? I mean, it's a very tough one. From brand association, there's a lot of historical side of things. You look at the retro side of things. That Steelers, Belfast were there 25 years. Panthers have updated theirs. Fife has kind of been there in the woodworks. Guildford has a very familiar look to it if you're from Calgary, if I'm honest. Storm as well has that kind of look, and it's a tough one, really. Looking at it, I know the rigmarole that everyone said about the changes to the Devils logo, and I don't want to say hate. I mean, is hate a strong word? But can you remember, obviously, the announcement that the Devils logo changed, and people were such a degree that they just looked at it with absolutely definition. And now we hardly hear it. People are still buying the product, still buying the jerseys, and actually love it. That's the thing. Team wise, it's tough to make a change. Hiring someone, of all the things that you need to deal with facilities, player signings, or anything like that, I've not seen a logo now where I've just thought, oh, that needs changing. That makes no sense. I mean, a Steeler, the history of Sheffield, a Panther for Nottingham because Panthers are frequent in Nottingham, and then obviously Giants. The 25 years, the new logo that brought in. Historically, when they bring the retro kits in, look at the old logos for the Giants and the levels that brought in. But it's all about brand association, really, more than anything. Is that if you were to take the names away on the logos and say recognize which logos are that. I mean, Devils did it last year, actually. I remember when they used to do the videos and just speak to the public outside. They were fun, the different names that came up for different teams that were coming for the non-hockey public was insightful. But we know these logos. Everyone's got a jersey. Everyone's got some piece of merchandise that is related to their team, or teams in other countries as well. I mean, Toronto Maple Leafs. It's a maple leaf. There's not a major rebranding that you can do. Flyers have wings. Dundee Stars has a star. There's just so many different levels that you can actually do with the logos, and why why fix something if it isn't broken? If I'm honest. But people wanted me to ask what the best and the worst is, so let's do this one. Okay, so worst is Dundee, in my opinion. I think obviously they can give it a nice little bit of a look on that one. And the best one, I like Blaze. That's the thing. Who doesn't love dragons? As well. But it's a very niche thing, if we're honest. If your team had the best logo but they had no points at the bottom of the table and they weren't winning any games, what would you change? Would you change a logo, or would you hope they get a manager in that starts winning games and better roster of players? That's where it kind of looks through there. So who is the best mid-season signing? I mean, obviously, the way the changes, Maxim Gallard was probably the signing that kind of mid-season that came in. Of course, that's a different one, but for coming into someone to that level and playing as well that they did. Other than that, two other names I'd like to put through is Jason Grande. Bednar being injured the way he was, and Warner going back home for someone to come in who's basically playing. We've spoken about this with Panthers, that if they haven't got the goalkeeping tandem and Luke is not going to come in and play, Grande knows that both weekends he's playing full non-stop. He's played really, really well. To a different level is Manchester Storm's Tendek. Axel is going to play. He's a really good netminder, good Brit netminder. He can come in and do a job, but Tendek is really a player that has come in, save stats. I think, he might be a shoe in for February's player of the month, netminder of the month for ourselves, because, he's come in, people he didn't play that first game against Sheffield, but since he came in, he's just performed amazingly well. You look where Storm were at a particular time, and just brought it in. Admittedly, as I'm talking, talking about netminders and mid-season signings, going back to the earlier point, the Nottingham Panthers have just announced that Hootsman is now signed for the Nottingham Panthers from him being at Sheffield Steelers, being released earlier today. Bednard, who's still injured, means that he's made the switch from the Steelers and going to Nottingham. So that's just been announced while I'm live. Obviously, check on the Panthers' social media channels for more information, of course. I mean, that's pretty cool, isn't it? I mean, mid-show, messages coming in, just basically saying, oh, did you know? He's just signed. Literally, I've had 5 messages in less than a minute. So, obviously, throw your thoughts. Let us know, socials and in the chat, what you think if Hootsman making a sign-in for Panthers is a good one. But then that kind of goes to the question. Grande's played, he's playing a lot of games last couple of weeks. Now they've brought a netminder in that, can sit. Obviously, drop and import, of course, when they need to. But that kind of things, Bednard's injuries for the last couple of weeks has kind of meant that he's been out of the team. They've got someone in now. Let's see if he plays in the games. And, to be fair, if Nottingham to Sheffield, distance-wise, isn't very long at all. I should know, looking at it. But, yeah, breaking news, signing news, while you're listening to this live. Admittedly, if you're watching on demand or you're listening to the podcast, this is old news. So, obviously, take it with a pinch of salt. This is either you're listening to it and it's brand new information, or it's really old news that's just come through and you're just thinking, he's making a bit excited, but I recorded it on Monday. So, take that one on the chin. So, which team do you think you'll currently win trophies this season? So, obviously, I did on the questions, if you guys answer them, asked who would win the league, who would win the playoffs and win the Challenge Cup. So, at this moment in time, it's Belfast to lose league-wise. They've got the points differential. It can turn on a dime, really. Panthers, Devils, and Steelers are breathing on the neck. You kind of put yourself in a position there that any of those 4 teams could win the league. It all depends on who's dropping points, the ascendancy of one particular team, injuries, forms, officials, everything. Sheffield can go from winning a really top game against Belfast and then come unglued against Fife. It all changes the conversation, really. Challenge Cup, if we're honest, it's kind of proved a point. Belfast having a 3-goal advantage against Panthers. They conceded 5 on Sunday. Is it a done game before the second leg? No. Panthers can score. They've got the home crowd. It'll be a noisy, it'll be a rowdy, it'll be a full one in Nottingham. And I said I would give my predictions. I'll do it now. I think it'll be Devils versus Panther in the final. If I'm honest, in Cardiff, because I just think that second leg, I think it's a tough one. Belfast can win it, but I just see it's there really where you look at it and you think, Panthers make that final, and then it's the battle of the Conti Cup teams, really. The winners fight it through in the Challenge Cup, and I haven't been to Cardiff this year, so I'd love to go to Cardiff this season. But that's my prediction. Obviously, any Belfast fan that's listening, record it. Remind me when obviously you go through and you win the final and you win the cup that I said that in this moment. So take it on the chin. Playoffs is a tough one. So let's have a look. So 4 people that are going to get to playoffs. Okay. Right. So Sheffield will be there. Belfast will be there. Panthers will be there. And Coventry will be there. It'll be one of those 4. Oh, I'm just putting a rod on my own back tonight. Jeez. But yeah, winning through that one. Who's going to win out of those 4? I mean, on this time, there's no engagement that's riding on who wins a trophy in Nottingham. So I'm a little bit out of luck on that one. If I'm honest, let's go for it. Coventry get there, Coventry get the win, Coventry win a playoff. There we go. It's completely unglued. It's gone completely mad. He starts doing predictions, and now he's just gone mad in his predictions. He's completely overwhelmed with his predictions now. But yeah, that's where my thought process is on that one. So let's look at the other questions as well. We go. So we've done trophies there. We've done mid-players signings. Should the league bring back a wage cap to make things fair? I mean, looking at that, wage caps are always a fun one to discuss and look through. I think this is the thing: is that the emotions of bringing the right players in the right areas. Sometimes a wage cap is you're bringing the best players that you can possibly can within the structure that you have financially. So top talent will go to the arena teams. That's not just based on money. That is obviously based on localized area, transportation. Because that's the thing is a lot of things kind of get brought in that isn't always about the finances. It's having a car, having accommodation, food, amenities, everything like that. Is if you ever think of bringing someone from another country over to the UK, there is so many differential factors that need to be done. The off season. When people are saying, "Why have you not announced a signing? Why haven't you done this? It's been 12 hours. You've not announced anyone. The season's ended 12 hours ago. Why haven't you announced a signing?" Is the rigmarole of everything that needs to be done and bringing, work permits and getting a structure of a scheme to make sure everything's in. That's why a lot of teams are very fortunate with the relationships that they bring in. And this is the thing about sponsorship is they're bringing the right set of people in that can help them. You want a car, we've got a car deal. We've got, housing, we've got accommodation, we've got this long line, we can get you a TV, we can get you a kettle, we can bring this. So you basically just coming in, concentrate on the ice. Would a wage cap bring it in line and bring it fair? It's a tough one, really. Is that the moment a player is, I don't know how much a player is on. I'm never going to know, and it's a very tough situation with the thought processes of who you can bring in and everything like that. Is that you want the best people that you can bring in, and now there is that competition. European leagues are getting bigger and better. There is obviously a lot more colleges and a lot more American and Canadian players that can go through that system and get the education. I think that's one of the big factors for the UK is that the university degrees that can be brought in for these players that can stay for 1 or more years as an import, and they get something out of it as well. They work hard, they play hard, and then they also get an education out of it so they can go back with a master's and go back with something that they can do after they retire and that career ends is a big incentive. You know, I would, I'm very fortunate that I've been in the UK. I've never had to live abroad or start from scratch. And it must be really daunting, not just from a player point of view where you coming into get into new surroundings. I mean, there's just so many factors. They bring their partners, they bring their families in. They want to make sure that they're fully looked after, and that's where a lot of factors come in. But financials need to be the same as well. But I wouldn't say that certain players are on pittances throughout the league. Really, you look at the higher echelons of the league, and then you look lower down. I'm sure there is some really good players that are in teams that are in 7th and 8th, 9th, 10th position that are still on good money as well, but it's the whole package. Thing is that you can always just look at it and you think a lot of people factor it in that someone is going to be here for 12 months, a minimum 12 months in a new area, starting from scratch. There is no situation where they're bringing their equipment, change of clothes, equipment, everything like that. They're coming into a building where everything has to be start from scratch for them. New beds, new bedding, kettle, iron, TV. I'm just naming household appliances now, as you do. But there is just so many fundamental factors that you coming in is, yeah, of course, if you're getting hundreds and hundreds of pounds a year, that is a factor. Of course, it is. The more that you've got to spend, the more you can bring in from a per month basis, per week basis. I mean, that's when I play Eastside Hockey League, and it was saying that I was offering someone £200 a week to play, and I was thinking that can't be right. That can't be right. But there is just so mitigating factors that people want to be comfortable. They don't want to be homesick. They want to make sure that they've got everything they need, and the complete package is there. And that's probably where the bigger teams really act to factor in, is that they will have bigger relationship deals with areas. I mean, if you look at, let's go for Nottingham, because I know the area, because I'm here, I live here, is that, a lot of people have flats, accommodation throughout the city. Even if you're out the city centre, if you're looking at Beeston, you're looking at Arnold, you're looking at West Bridgeford, there is so many areas with commune, cars. I mean, I remember the year that the cars came through with, they didn't have tax on it, and then they got clamped, but that was a different conversation for a different day. But this is the thing that you mitigate the factor, is that, if you are looking at it, what you can bring in and the players that are realistically available, is the level of the league changes dramatically. And I think we're in a perfect niche. We're in a perfect storm moment there, where, if we're honest, there are teams that are still punching above their weight that people would think, aren't performing well, but they still bring it. I remember a time, obviously, when they did the Elite Series and they started doing a draft. If, there's so many different factors that you can put in. But for me, I feel like it's working at the moment. We're trying to grow the sport. We're trying to make it as bigger and better as we can. As soon as we get the TV deal, certain things factor into it. It's going to be an exciting time, but I just feel like bringing in a wage cap right now isn't the right thing to do, because it's just going to, we're in the ascendancy at this moment in time. It's very strange for me to say. So that any change that needs to be done just needs to be gradually brought in. There's a lot that is not on the top list of things that I would be looking at changing at this moment in time. That's probably the best way I would say it, if I'm honest. So looking at the other questions, there we go. So we did the Brit player as well, but one thing that someone wanted to know really is, who's the most underrated player in the Elite League this season? And, this is the big factor really, is that, a lot of people are amassing points but don't really get the songs, I think, and the attention that they actually need. I think, one of the big thing for the player of the month, and I know people have said, it's always the bigger fan bases that do it. But there is a couple of players that, in the Coventry team, in the Storm team, in the Flames team, Afaro as well, Derflinger as well, Kennedy, Robson. These people don't get the shouts that they necessarily need. And I think that's obviously the biggest takeaway, is that, everyone can't be a winner. And as I've said, it's a bit of fun, really, with the quizzes that we do. But when we ask you, who's the best player and anything like that, and there is a lot of players there that you don't see get the plaudits that readily do. The Warrior of the Month and everything that the league do is a tough one, because, there is a lot of talent within differentials of every single team. And it's hard to just pick one. If I'm honest, the best player in every team, it can vary. It's an opinion. It's an opinion sport more than anything. It's, people see the little intricacies and little factors that people kind of throw in of the better players. And, you see it, you'll see certain players that are just at the forefront every single time, offensively, defensively. And there is a lot of unsung heroes in every team that just pull the shirt on, do a job, and don't get to the levels of thought processes. But that's something that, is a very good question. And can announce that obviously we'll be doing most underrated player of the year for the end of year awards, because we asked that, because the mascots are already started. Literally, Lightning Jack is already there with their questions of, they're going to beat Clangus this year as the best mascot of the year. Pauses, throwing his name in the hat. So it should be good fun. Obviously, after last year, Clangus winning. Other question: worst thing about being in England? I mean, I'm going to do it from a hockey side of view because obviously I could be here all day with certain things. That's the worst thing about being in England, and I think the factor is, public transport. You know, this season is probably filled with a level of I wish I got to more different games within the leagues. I say the leagues because obviously, I've not been to a Lions game, not been to Hull like I wanted to, or Leeds or anything like that. And it's a tough thing. Trains are very expensive, buses are very expensive, flights. I mean, this is a person who every time he has to go to Scotland has to take a flight from Scotland to Belfast to get back to Nottingham because it's cheaper for me to go to another country than it is to get a bus or a train. But yeah, that's probably the worst thing from a hockey point of view being in England, if I'm honest. And that's why it's a testament. You see these Belfast fans coming over. It's scary to think of what the actual cost is that they pull out, even from a team point of view. And, people will say, the game's got abandoned, they should buy jetpacks or anything like that to get across the sea. But it's tough, and affordability, you take away food, 50-50 tickets, shirt off the back, merchandise, food at the arenas, drinks at the arenas. It's quite surreal and quite scary, the costing of everything like that in UK hockey. But then, admittedly, I looked at tickets for a Maple Leafs game, and when I saw that the tickets were nearly £4,000-5,000 for a seat, I was thinking, yeah, I mean, to be fair, I'll take my 25-30 quid and a £50 flight there and back any day of the week compared to that one. But it's tough, it's been a really good week for hockey in general. I think a lot of teams, we're getting to the business end of the season, really, where you look at it and you think, it's all coming up to these next couple of weeks, 17 games to go before then we get to the playoffs. And then, it's scary. Then we got GB in the summer, and then we get to do it all again. We get all excited about the new signings, the ins and outs, the who's and who, certain players, who's coming where. Do people take the step up from the National League into the Elite League? Do people make the step down from the Elite League to the National League? It's a really exciting time. There's a lot of young Brits that are coming through in the ascendancy. Where will Fife be next season? People question, will any national teams take the step up? I've said it, maybe I'm saying the same things again, but I don't think any of them will. They're in the perfect situation, perfect place they are. Still hopeful that Fife find a buyer, and they're one of the 10 teams following season. But the last question that I'm going to do before I leave you, so you can enjoy the rest of your evening, is the 3-year plan. Someone messaged saying about do we think that the league's going to change in the next 3 years with players leaving, teams leaving, the way it's going? So wild predictions for the next 3 years. If I'm honest, I think we're going to get to the end of the Grand Slam era or the treble era. If I'm honest, I think a lot more teams are going to be sharing the spoils. I think from the CHL, whoever wins the league, I think that's going to be it's going to be a continuous thing now where they get into the last 16, whoever that team may be who wins the league. If I'm honest, it's going to grow and grow. Will there be a TV deal in the next 3 years? I think, from what I'm seeing, the energy and the time that's been taken within the people and higher powers within the league is they're starting to see that there is, it's the most popular indoor sport in the UK. It's starting to get a lot more press. I mean, admittedly, the main thing that was in the press was 3 fights in 9 seconds between the USA versus Canada because they could make it political. Of course they could. But hockey's getting out there. BBC Sport, the local regions are doing it as well, which is great. Different channels there. There's a hell of a lot of podcasts. There's a hell of a lot of YouTube videos, and there's a lot more articles being written about the league. It's going to grow. It's going to grow. It's going to grow. 3 years, I feel like we're kind of getting into the position where it's going to get there. But, we're all working together to do it, to make it better. But I think the key, most important thing that I can say to everyone really is, keep at it. You make the sport what it is. I see the good in every single person that loves every single moment, that enjoys the highs, hates the lows, but are in such a position where you are the life force of the league. And that not just the Elite League, any league that you're listening to and following, but, go and support the younger generation. They're the next players that are going to be through the door. Watch as much hockey as you can, and it's going to get bigger. It's going to get better. There's going to be a lot of excitement. There's going to be trials and tribulations. We might win a trophy here or two. GB might get to that top league again. The girls are kicking ass as well. The younger generation are doing really, really well. The next players, the thing is that when these players start retiring and these don't play in GB anymore, and the next lot coming through, those players, you can see them right now, live and in person. The next generation, the players that are going to be to those echelons, the bigger picture of how this sport's going to grow and develop. The sport's changed. The days of a sheriff and a fighter is now gone. European players with skill. And if you want to win, hire a Finn. Every team's trying to hire a Finn now. European leagues are getting bigger and bigger and better, and their players go to, the national. They go to America and Canada, but these teams getting better and getting stronger means that in Europe, the feed upon of us is going to get top quality players that are younger, hungrier, will stay in the leagues for longer and make it a lot more exciting, a lot more faster and exciting. So in the next 3 years, I think we're going to start seeing more development within the Brits, a lot more players coming from the USA and Canada, but also a lot more coming from Europe. And it's going to develop the game, and there's going to be a style within the UK that's going to show that we're not just here to make up the numbers. So, yeah, they were the questions from me this week. So I do appreciate everyone who took the time to send questions. Of course, if you're not following us on any of our social media channels, why not? But obviously, you can make up for that by following us now on social media, on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. And also give us a like and a follow on here and a review. Always love to see them and read them. And of course, on Spotify, give us a follow, give us a review. Always greatly appreciated for your time and your questions and all your support that you do. And, we would hope, obviously, we could get to see you next week for episode 20. So have a good evening, everyone. Enjoy your hockey this week. And if I see you at a game, come and say hi.